Welcome to Pamastay. Before we get started today, we wanted to mention that how we show up matters. Looking good and feeling good matter when we're in the emotional space near our lowest lows. Sometimes a grooming, pick-me-up, a haircut, new clothes, a refresh, and a pedicure or a bath. All those things can improve our well-being and our outlook. Today, we're going to speak with a woman who holds a patent for clothes that make recovery easier and maintain a sense of athleisure style. Enjoy this with us. Now let's get into introductions right after you subscribe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pamastay Podcast. We are a podcast focused on informing families on what it is to age gracefully and get a preview into issues they may need to prepare for. When something happens, such as a fall, people have to act quickly and often without very much planning. Our goal is to help people get more information as quickly as possible so there's less surprise and they have more context that's usable in a difficult situation. I'm Ashwini, and this is my co-host Erin, and we're looking at things like long-term care insurance, deprescribing, end-of-life conversations, and cardiac care, topics that matter to you and the people you care about. Today, we are joined by Bimla.
Thanks, Ashwini. We're joined by CEO and co-founder Bimla Picot, who runs a retail clothing company called Reboundwear. Bimla comes from a background in design before she founded her company and has been leading it for nearly 10 years. Bimla, I know you in a little bit of a personal context, but being able to have this time with you professionally, I'm exceptionally grateful for it with all the leadership that you've already done in this aging space over the past years. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. And we're excited to get a little bit of a background of how you actually started Reboundwear and why.
Why is a very good question, because I'm insane. That's why. It came to me. I fell into it. I'm part of what's called the sandwich generation. We take care of our children, we take care of our friends, we take care of our parents and our family. And in the sandwich generation is usually women who have, carried all of this responsibility. But anyway, happily, it's our pleasure. We love taking care of the people we love. And a dear friend of mine who was 92 years old, who was living completely independently, fell down, as you said, the fall, the terrible fall. And because she was living alone and because recovery was going to take a long time, the doctors said that she had to recover at a rehabilitation center. So there she was, and it was, I would say, the most exclusive senior home and rehabilitation in New York City. So there she went, and I was visiting her every day, and the recovery took a very long time. But in the time that I spent with her there, day in and day out, just watching what her personal experience was, what was the experience of all of the people living on her floor, what was the experience of the caretakers, I became almost obsessed, I was obsessed with it. Because we were in a situation where she was only 4'11", by the way, so very tiny, but so vulnerable. She had a surgery. She was in a lot of pain. Every morning, an aide would come to dress her, bathe her, dress her, and feed her. And I would walk down the hall and I could hear her screaming. And I thought, what is going on? And it was just that she was in such physical pain. And at the same time, the aide was so careful and doing the very best she could to dress this woman. Different days I would get to the residence at different times of the day. And sometimes it was later in the morning, everyone had been dressed. And I noticed that they would line them up in the hallway for various reasons. And I would see how they were dressed. So their shirts were lopsided. Many of these people had various forms of dementia. I knew that they were very sensitive and cognizant about their appearance and how the clothes felt on them. And they knew that people were looking at them with sympathetic eyes, or everyone was doing the best they could, but the results were less than optimal. And what I found in most cases were that many people's minds were very sharp, but their bodies had failed them. Dementia and Alzheimer's is another conversation. But even with dementia, even with Alzheimer's, getting dressed is hard. So that was my first experience. And I just thought, if this is the best place in New York City, we have to do better. And why does it take two people to dress my one friend who's only 4'11"?
Quick interjection here. Just wanted to provide a little bit of context about the stories that you're hearing here. Bimla is a close friend of us, so she is being very gracious and sharing a lot of personal stories here. The story that is coming after this, I think, could use a little bit of exposition. So she's just sharing a little bit about what it was like to care for her mother.
And at the time she was 80, and she's a very positive person. She was a professional in the banking industry, very independent. And she fell down, and the same thing. They said, you need to spend 3 days in a rehabilitation facility because we want to make sure that you're strong on your feet, that you understand about icing, and also that there aren't any infections. So I don't know what the cutoff is, but essentially if you're over a certain age, insurance, again, one of those wonderful metrics, decides that you better go to a rehabilitation center, because if they send you home straight away, probably you will fall down and probably you will need another surgery, in which case the doctors don't get paid. Anyway, off she went to her rehabilitation center, and she's super positive. She'd just been through this really painful surgery. When I went to visit her, she was so delighted with the visits. Oh, and look at my new friend to the left, and look at my new friend to the right. And, but dressing her was just such a bear. And I didn't want to, she was already putting her mind in the best place that it could be. So I didn't want to complain about, why it was so difficult to dress her. And it was so hard. And I just walked away from that just thinking, why is getting dressed the hardest part of her recovery? You would think that it would be PT or icing or medication or, all of the things that come along with surgeries. But no, it was dressing. That's really crazy. That's really crazy. And then my best friend had breast cancer. And again, lucky me, super positive woman. She had done yoga for years and years and years. And she really came to it with the focus on wellness. And, she came through it with flying colors, and again, very, very positive. And again, I came to Reboundwear because every time I was trying to help someone I was taking care of, I'm a fix-it person. Let's just get this fixed. Let's just get it done. And then she had to wear a special bra after the breast surgery. I'm like, okay, let's just get it. And there was no bra. And we were going to Victoria's Secret, to try to find her like a bra for post-surgery. It was like, this is just, insanity. But it does, keep humor in the whole thing, I guess. She was very brave. I was distressed. She was very, very positive about the whole thing. But when I was, we had to change her drains. So a lot of these conversations you will find are not very sexy. And there's a lot of, the reality of it is that it's just messy, and it's just stuff people find uncomfortable to talk about, but we need to talk about it.
It is challenging. I mean, I have some friends who are going through breast cancer treatment right now, and a couple of them recently. And you have clothes for that situation.
Yes.
And so before we get into that, but I think it's important to acknowledge that you have clothes for that situation. And that's exciting to a certain degree, because it can also compartmentalize some of those experiences for people as well, to have clothes that are fit for those experiences. Can you talk a little bit about the first garment that you made?
My clothing is patented, and it's only one design. So it's one shirt. It's one shirt that has zippers and panels in every place, and you can't see it. You can't see that. That's what's called adaptive. So it looks like regular athletic wear, so that when you're sick or if you're disabled and someone's looking at you, you're wearing clothes that are on trend, that look like everyone else's clothes, not clothes that say, this is an adaptive shirt and I have a disability and I'm trying to have a conversation with you, but I can see you're only looking at my clothes, So I figured, they're fabulous on-trend athleisure wear. I will tell you one last story. My friends, both of them are doctors, their daughter was diagnosed with pediatric leukemia. And for children, when they have these chronic illnesses, they spend a lot of time in the hospital. So for grown-ups and the world we're in healthcare and hospitals, they want to get you in and get you out. But with children with these long-term chronic illnesses, they have to spend a lot of time in the hospital, a lot of time. And they very often they're in hospital beds and they have all kinds of devices attached to them, and the nurses need quick and easy access, right? So you're a mom, your baby's there sitting half naked, and and again, we'll talk about this maybe another time, but the key to all of this is normalcy. Normalcy is the word that they use in the medical industry. And she wasn't, she was 5 or 6 years old. And for the baby, I mean, to me, that's a baby. For the 5-year-old, she wants to look like everybody she knows who's 5-year-old, who's wearing cool clothes, it's dehumanizing. So that was, one of the other things. So those were all the things that finally pushed me over the edge. I'm like this, all of these illnesses are so complicated. Getting dressed, the simplest task that you and I do without ever thinking about it in the morning. We get up, we think, okay, we're going to get dressed. We don't think another, maybe not everything matches, but whatever. But for these people, all of them, whether it was a baby or my octogenarian friend, getting dressed took so long. And not only did they have to get dressed in the morning, but then they had to get undressed again because they needed treatments or icing or bandage changes. So at a time when you're so challenged with mobility and pain, you are actually required to dress and undress several times a day. So I knew I wasn't the only person with the problem. After 6 months and all, 6 months to a year, all these friends going through a myriad of health issues, but the common thread, no pun intended, was that clothes and dressing were the hardest part. I worked in high fashion. I worked for a lot of designers. I design my own line of baby clothes. I'm a serial designer. I walk into anything and I just can see things and I just want to fix them all the time. So I thought this...
On a little tangent there, I heard you worked at Chanel. Is that true?
That is true. That is true. That is true. Chanel, Armani, all the high, which is, and I'll tell you why that comes in so handy. Well, I'm also a fashionista. so I don't want anybody to wear anything that I don't want to wear. And actually, my mother was, a great, she's my mother, and we'll talk about what it is when you take care of your own mother and you're a daughter, because that can be pretty tricky. But, when I was looking for clothes for her, I thought what I could find were house coats that buttoned in the back. There were clothes from like the 1950s. There was nothing. It was all just dated and old fashioned and not stylish. And I thought, if I bring this to my mother, it will push her over the edge. She will be so upset. If I bring her this thing, it will say to her, here are these clothes. These clothes or this hospital gown says you are sick. I started sweeping all the research I could find. I got onto the CDC. I'm not the only person with this problem. How big is the problem? Who are these people? Where are they? And I also didn't tell anybody for 2 years what I was doing because I knew they were going to say, you're crazy. So, and the more information I gathered, the more compelling. And when you ask me, well, why I started, I actually had a normal life and a lucrative career somewhere else. But there was no going back. It was so compelling. The size of the market, the need, the basic need, and then the possibility to solve this problem. So I hired a PhD candidate at a university who was working in healthcare. And I asked her, I said, you might have access to data that I can't get. So would you do the study for me? And she did. And then the numbers became even more mind-boggling and astronomical. Fortunately, I have a friend who was the head of trauma at a very famous hospital in New York where they take care of all kinds of people. And I learned a lot from that too. And they organized a focus group for me at that hospital. And I had occupational therapists, physical therapists, doctors, nurses, patients, everyone. And I made some prototypes. I live in New York City. I'm lucky. The fashion garment center is here. So I thought, oh, let me tweak, let me just whittle away at this and see what I can come up with. I came up with prototypes, brought it to the focus group, asked everybody what they thought. And I took their feedback, what could be better? And they're like, what took so long? What took so long? This is something that could be life-changing for us. As therapists, we do the best we can in giving people the best treatments we can. But sometimes it's hard when someone's wearing a button-down shirt like me, they're trying to administer stuff or get someone to pedal as hard as they can on a bike and they're wearing chinos and it's it's just and the really fun part is that they took care of elite athletes, from all the football, basketball, skiing. And I could also see what those therapies looked like, and how really when a therapist could get their hands onto the patient, and really administer these manual therapies, icing, all of that stuff, what a difference that could make. So I had my focus group, tweak the styles, and then I did a beta. I think it's a good idea. They thought it was a good idea. Let's see what the public thinks. And the people I learned a lot from were people, and I hate to say it, people with disabilities. And we say, so I have all these trademarks and all these slogans, but we say at Reboundwear, we make clothes for people of all abilities. And when I was trying to get information from them about how I could make the best product, I was hoping that they would tell me what their physical challenges were so I could do better. And they were like, I really love music, or, gardening is just my jam. I love to cook. Do you like to cook? They already know they have a disability. They don't want to talk about it. They want that normalcy again. So, the clothes that you make for them, they want it to look fabulous. So what I found, and my friend's dad, he had a physical issue. He's a guy who never wore blue jeans in the city. Again, always a blazer, a tie. He was casual in gray flannel pants or chinos, and then he fell down. He was in the hospital, and the doctor said, you have to walk up and down this hall 3 times before we can release you, right? And he was so depressed. He was sitting there in that hospital again, so depressed. So did he do the physical therapy? No. And when you send people home and you're saying, these are the 4 things you need to do to recover successfully and comfortably, does it happen? No. So that's why when I was going through my research, I spent a lot of time, I did a deep dive on the mind-body connection. And that is so real. That is so real. And when people are depressed and, they just put up a wall and there's no getting past that. But if you can make them feel optimistic, if you can just get that one glimmer in the eye, you can take one of those hard steps. So there was no Reboundwear at the time. I went to a sporting goods store. I bought, his name was Big Daddy. We got him sneakers. I got him athletic pants, and I got him a rugby shirt or whatever it was. And I brought it to the hotel. I said, this is for you. So you can get up tomorrow and you can start walking down the hall. Well, he never owned a pair of sneakers. He put them on the next day, came in, and he was sitting up in a chair, not in the bed anymore, sitting up in the chair. And he said, I want you to know, I walked down that hall 3 times. We took him out of a hospital gown and put him in clothes. So there's your mind-body connection.
What's really resonating with me is the concept of how the care is almost so dehumanizing that you're not even able to engage with the people who are caring for you. You're not able to get that spark, and the spark needs to come from within to solve any kind of personal problem, let alone something as significant as recovery. You need to feel safe, you need to feel seen, you need to feel cared for, and you need to feel empowered. And even something as simple as being thoughtful enough to give Big Daddy his shoes, I feel like it's something that comes from knowing someone and having a personal connection with someone. And that's what I think makes Reboundwear such an incredible idea, is that you're actually giving people that power and that encouragement to take things into their own hands,
Well, that's exactly right. What you were saying, so when my friend was in the senior care, after they dressed her, she would cling on to the aide's arm because she wanted to talk to her. She just needed to talk to her. She wanted that human interaction, right? When I did this accelerator, I had an extraordinary opportunity to work with a branding genius. We did a workshop, and she went around the room. She said, "Who's your customer? Who's your customer?" And I was like, "Rotator cuff people." And she said, "No." She said, "Your customer is the person who is proactive about their health. That person, it knows that something's happening to them and they are going to take charge of their health. They still think that they're going to go to a hospital and a doctor is going to perform some kind of miracle on them, and then nurses are going to take care of them until they're healthy. That's really what people think, and that's really what doesn't happen. So we get sale, we'll make a sale and we offer free shipping. They get on, we can see, because everything's so efficient now. So they're looking at us, and they don't pull the go button until about 4 days before surgery. And then they will pay $50 to have it shipped because they've waited until the last minute. But at least they're trying,
I do think there's this really interesting concept that we missed early on in this conversation around athleisure. And some of what Reboundwear does is enable people to wear clothes that still make folks feel good, right? I can still feel good about this. And if I look good and I feel good, that's going to impact how I socialize, my attitude about my recovery. I'm not going to feel as much like a victim. I'm going to feel like I've got a team and there are things that are helping me move forward. And I think that's part of the brilliance of what you've done with making Reboundwear more of an athleisure brand, particularly because some of the stuff that you've created is well suited for folks who are going through breast cancer treatments of multiple kinds. And breast cancer treatments and the drugs associated with them, they happen monthly or weekly for 12 months sometimes or longer.
And dialysis.
And dialysis as well. That's
people who
an
just live with
thing.
Treatments all day, every day.
And we didn't celebrate that. And I feel like that's a miss. And so I wanted to make sure that we got a chance to acknowledge that, and for folks that are curious about your brand to actually look online, because you've designated some of the stuff on your site, and we're not getting any kickbacks for this. Bimla's not paying us for anything. I don't have any interest in Reboundwear other than wanting people to feel good in a tough time, in a crappy time, to feel better and to normalize feeling a little bit better. And you've got a way for that people can choose clothes based on condition, and that's great.
There are so many people, even who are not in their third act, who are experiencing chronic conditions or have limitations that could benefit from wearing Reboundwear. I have friends with type 1 diabetes who are consistently giving themselves medication prior to meals, who, may not want to draw attention to that and may want to have clothing that's designed for that. People recovering from C-sections who have just given birth may benefit from clothing like this, And it's important.
You can even be a breastfeeding mom, and you can get the 10-minute manicure in the massage in the mani salon.
Nursing mothers, there's so many, different scenarios where Reboundwear comes into play. Although, Erin and I are particularly interested in geriatric use cases, I see a bunch of value here.
Yeah, and aging is for all of us. Like, if we're all privileged enough to get older, maybe it's not just 3 acts, it's a 5-act play. You know what I mean?
That is exactly right.
So, I think that I have friends going through these situations now, and I'm excited to give them something. When there's an issue, it's like, how do I suddenly manage this? But there's also all this love and affection that people want to give folks who are close to us. And if we let that disperse and we're not able to provide, food, or provide phone calls, or provide presents, flowers, clothing, childcare, there's we miss out on some of that community. So
it takes a village,
Yep.
They say it takes a village, and I don't know, it doesn't matter where you live. When someone's going through something like this, it takes a village. So the reason I actually started with a different kind of clothing, but I realized that, like, for my friend's dad, when I gave him this athletic wear, it's kind of, I don't know if you saw those memes about athleisure wear, wearing my athleisure wear, and she's smoking a cigarette and she's sitting on the sofa, and she's actually not ever going to go to the gym, but because she's wearing her, athleisure wear, she's like, I'm already so healthy because I'm wearing. So that is really what it was. After I saw that connection with my friend's dad, I thought, and I also had a hip surgery, and I was spending so much time, as I said, in this hospital with this incredible focus group and these doctors, and I would go down to the physical therapy and I would see, like, wow, this is, you cannot optimize your therapy if you're wearing, restrictive clothing. And if you just put on some gym clothes, that's just going to be so much better. And then you can change that bandage, and then you can do, all the things in the day of the life. And I spent a lot of time in the day of the life of all of these people. Yes, they get dressed. Yes, they need PT. Yes, they need icing. Yes, you have to change their bandages. Yes, they have to go to the doctor. It's a lot of things in one day, for the kid who, has to go to occupational therapy, but then he wants to go to school and he wants to look cool like all the other kids. But also, it's true. People wear athleisure wear because it's comfortable. What I made is presentable. Getting dressed should not be the hardest part of your health issue, whatever it is, however old you are. This is something that I had the hack. I knew I patented it. I knew I could come up with the solution, the idea that would work for everybody. So there are very few things in the healthcare space that work for everybody, but this does. The other thing that I say, so the phone rang, we actually pick up the calls at Reboundwear because we know that people want to speak to other people and they are in this crisis situation. And I am not a doctor. I never give anybody any kind of medical advice. We will always answer the phone. So the fellow who called said, I need a pair of pants for my dad. He just came home and he's got a catheter. And then I heard him calling, Dad, what size is your catheter? So it was just, none of us are equipped. We're not trained. There's no handbook. Do you know how to change a catheter? I don't. So we do pick up the phone. You do need this human connection. Once we spend a little bit of time and we give them some hacks, they feel so relieved. And then they're prepared. Then they're like, oh, okay, I can do this. I actually can do this. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I can do this. I had one, and this, I'll leave you with this note. So we had three really fun experiences with our first sale. So our first sale, a woman calls, she writes to, she ends up calling. And she said, I had to have a shoulder repair surgery. And I'm really concerned because my husband's going to take care of me, and I'm sure she loved him. So I said, oh, well, what? And again, we're collecting data. It's early days. We need to find out everything we can, right? Well, how did you tear your shoulder? She said, well, I was landing my plane. She was landing her plane and the landing gear, pulled her shoulder out. So, this is just life. It's not always terrible. It's not always, this is just life, right? She said, so I'm very concerned because, my husband's going to have to dress me and I don't know, he's the nicest guy ever, but I don't see him managing this. So that was that one call. Then, she followed up with a little video, said he figured out how to do her hair because he put it up in a ponytail and used a vacuum cleaner to get it through. to get it through, the hair tie.
I think I've seen that on TikTok now.
Oh,
I think that's
well,
like this
I'm just
crazy
telling you,
thing
this
now.
is the thing. This is why it's not all, bad and ugly. This is why the human side of it is so important, And then, we made another sale and this person bought everything. And, we were as excited as we were to make the sale. Suddenly you're in this place and you're thinking, oh my God, what happened to that person? Why do they need all those things? It's not just their top or not just, they're just buying, and then your heart just melts again. You're just like, oh, this is, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? So this is what I could do to help. Not all the stories are so bad. And some of them are really amazing. And then we had one other fellow and he kept buying, we kept making sales to him. And his secretary was the one who would call us. And so finally I asked her, I said, he said, all my friends are replacing all their parts. So every time, he was an older fellow, and every time somebody needed to replace a hip, a shoulder, a knee, an ankle, he would just send them. And his wife did have dementia. And he said, she's at this home. This is why I keep telling you, this is all you have to gain. These stories of people who make a difference in our world. And he said he bought Reboundwear for everyone on the floor so that it was easier for the caregivers. Here's a fellow who he's in this very challenging situation, but what does he do? He's still giving back to other people. Those this is why I do Reboundwear. It helps so many people, but in the world we're living in, it just gives me that connection. When you talk to people who have, illnesses and all kinds of things, and you think, how lucky are we? How lucky are we? And then I see moms who's, they have children who have all kinds of debilitating diseases. We did a show. We do a lot of shows. People love, especially at the senior centers, we do fashion shows. But we did one in New Jersey, and it was a lot of young parents with children who are wheelchair bound. And, I could just see all the love that these mothers had for their babies. I feel like sometimes we're living in the world of good enough is good enough. And if we make this amount of money, then it's enough and we don't have to do better. But I think when you're talking about the people in our lives, our families, our friends, we have to do better. We have to do the best we can.
And well, on that note, people who are listening to this conversation have been listening for many, many minutes, right? And different episodes as well. And we're trying to end with, if you had 60 seconds, right? Like right now, if there were 60 seconds that you could do to take yourself forward or be better to your future self, what would you encourage people to do in the next 60 seconds of their lives to pay themselves and their loved ones forward?
So I would say, take good care of yourself. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your family. You do need to be really thinking about your health and wellness, because it infiltrates every aspect of your life, every aspect. Take good care of yourself. Do things that make you happy. Release the serotonin. Give yourself some joy every day. That joy goes so far. You need the happiness. When they say, on Instagram, look at all those things with the animals and babies because it makes you happy. Look at them. And then the last person you have to look at, and I will send it to an email, there's a wonderful thing on Instagram where I guess he's a grandson and he talks to his Nona. And he says, Nona. And she must be like 80, she must be 95. That is a serotonin release. He says, what are you doing? And he brings her a big crate of tomatoes and she's making it a sauce. And she's outside and she's making, and you can see, she's ambulant. She can stand up. She can make the sauce. She's very animated. And it's this wonderful thing that you see between a grandson and his Nona, how she brings him such joy. And so, he's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm making it the sauce. But where's the music? You need the music to make the sauce. Like, these are the moments. So follow him, take care of your health, and be kind to everyone, because you will need them to take care of you. And if you alienate them, your son and daughter are not going to be all about it. And the care you're going to get is going to be a little compromised. So,
well, thank you very much for joining us today, Bimla. We really appreciate it. I have learned an extraordinary amount hearing your story, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
To our listeners, if you know anyone who could benefit from Reboundwear, or who is recovering from a treatment of any kind, or may have a treatment scheduled in the near future, highly recommend you check out Reboundwear and see if you want to, give it as a gift. It takes a community and takes a village to recover, so
Yes.
not overstepping by considering it as a gift for a loved one or a friend or family member.
And thank you for the gift of the conversation today. Thank
you, Bimla. Wishing you and yours good health always. Well, Ashwini, now that it's just the two of us, let's have a moment to chat about what we just learned. There is this concept of being in denial, and I think we're all in denial a little bit. I am in denial a little bit. I'm trying to go for runs every day because I can feel my back hurting. And I'm also a heavy dude now. I weigh 193 in a 6-foot body. And years ago, I was 6 feet at 165. People might say that I'm hiding weight or whatever that is, but like the reality is I'm heavier than I want to be. And if I'm carrying that weight with me, that's a strain on my systems too. And you can imagine that if I get larger, it's harder for people to move me. So if I'm a 200-pound person and I'm expecting care from someone and I'm in denial about the care that I need, it's going to be hard for someone who's 5'2" to assist me when I'm 6 feet and 200 pounds. These are just the practical considerations. When you think about being in the hospital at the hands of nurses who might have to move you physically around, if you're hard to work with or you're heavier just by nature and they need more people to work on you, if they're short staffed, coordinating all that work to get to you could be hard. There's just some practical considerations that I'm now thinking about where I'm in denial in myself around my aging and who I am and what to expect. It gives me pause about how I also think about my own future.
I think one thing I want to add on to that as well is the importance of mental fitness in these kinds of scenarios, obviously not considering any kind of mental deterioration or condition. But what I mean is taking care of yourself mentally so that when these situations occur that are extraordinarily stressful, you have the tools in place, the mindfulness activities, the routine in place to cope with the recovery and maintain your desire to recover and prevent any serious onset of dementia or anxiety, etc., that will naturally come with this kind of experience. I know for many cases it's not always avoidable, and I'm not addressing those specific scenarios. What I mean is more, if it's under our control to come at this with a positive attitude, we should try our hardest to do that and incorporate things into our routine to make that possible. The goal here with Pamastay is for us to all kind of feel less alone in this experience, but also more educated so that we can navigate this with strength. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Thank you for joining the Pamastay Podcast today with Reboundwear founder and CEO Bimla Picot. To make sure you don't miss our next conversation, please be sure to subscribe. You can also visit our website at pamastay.com for more insights and resources on the topics we covered today. Share our podcast with anyone that you think could benefit from it on social media, x.com, and any other iMessage and WhatsApp groups you may be a part of. It's a great way for others to discover this content and perhaps purchase clothing they may need in their next recovery. We appreciate your support, and we will see you next time.